Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another TAINA tip.
Hi, everybody.
So I've just got back from the Tax Reporting and Withholding Conference in DC last week, and I wanted to pick up on a topic that was the subject of a really interesting panel discussion, which is internal health checks.
Yeah, we've talked about this a little bit already, but what was the main angle being discussed this time?
It felt like there's been a shift. It is no longer just about having processes in place, it's about being able to show that they're actually working.
Oh, so more of a prove it approach.
Exactly. In the past, you could point to controls and documentation and say, this is what we do. Now the expectation is more like, can you demonstrate that those controls are consistently producing the right outcomes?
And I assume that's just not at year end anymore.
No, that was a big part of it. This is becoming an ongoing requirement. There was a session on internal health checks where Cyrus Daftari, who sits on our advisory board, was part of the panel, and it really seemed to land with people.
Oh, that makes sense. With the level of scrutiny increasing, a once a year review is probably not going to cut it.
Exactly. So the natural question becomes, how do you actually do that in practice? And how do you do it before an issue becomes a real problem?
Yeah, because internal audit can only go so far here.
Right, it plays a role, but it is not always set up to test tax-specific logic, and definitely not at the speed or frequency that is now being expected.
So where was that conversation leading then?
It moved quite quickly into automation and AI, but not in a replace people sense, more around how do you support teams in testing and retesting logic in a consistent way.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially if you're trying to validate outcomes rather than just the process steps.
Exactly. Automated systems and AI can help teams quickly test and retest logic, often across targeted samples or specific risk areas, delivering a level of speed and consistency that is difficult to achieve manually, while making sure processes are actually working as intended and producing the right outcomes.
And that's really the key point, right? It's not about volume, it's about confidence in the outputs.
Yes, that was the shift that came through quite clearly, moving from reacting to issues to actually having confidence in what you're producing.
And that's quite a big change in mindset for a lot of teams.
Definitely. It makes internal health checks feel much less like a nice to have and much more like a core part of how tax operational functions are expected to run.
And probably only going to become more important from here on out.
Exactly. So that's one area from the conference that really stood out. Thanks for listening, and we'll cover a few more topics in the next Tiny Tips.
Thanks for the insight, Keir.